to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stuff you and I talked about.
Oh, okay. We'll look at the agenda. There is one change that I have, which is the boat ramp contract is not here in time for review. Was not in time for review. So,
Boat ramp or swimming?
I'm sorry. Did I say boat ramp?
Yeah, I thought you meant swimming. I didn't say boat ramps, all right.
Mumford's Landing Swim and Racket Club full project.
That's correct. Yes.
Or off the agenda.
And it's off the agenda unless for a motion. There will be no motion. Okay. Other than that, is there anything else? Any other changes? No. Okay. Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comments.
Question, Dave, on the closed session, you're going to make the announcement of what you're going to discuss in the way it's been done in.
Not in this case, but I mean that's to say I won't write it down, but I will tell you what's the general subject.
General topic.
Yeah, might as well say it right now. The primary topic is the contract with Sandpiper. Yeah, and to discuss that. Any other public comments?
About the boat ramp. Just wait for that when it comes up.
No, not at all. Whatever comments you have, you should make now.
All right, I'm chair of the MAC committee.
Yes.
I actually submitted the proposal back in January.
I'm sorry, can you give me your name?
My name is Frank Watkins. I'm
Yeah.
chairman of the MAC committee.
And your address,
503 Tidewater Cove,
all for the record.
section 17, lot 67. Anything else?
Third floor.
Size of my pants or what?
What's your handicap? Do you play golf?
I don't play golf, I fish.
I don't know how big your boat is.
Sound like me.
That's
Right,
a
Tom?
problem.
You really get me in trouble.
Give me a try.
Anyhow, after I wasn't here for the last meeting last week, and the only comment that primarily that I would make regarding the boat ramp is that even though, to Marty's point, I'd like to have seen 2 or 3 bids submitted. However, we didn't get them, and there were 5 other people, at least, or 4 other people besides the bidder, submitted their proposal. Had the opportunity to submit their proposal, and they did not. So therefore, since we opened bid and made it public, my opinion is to offer a secondary bid and reopen bids would not be fair to Fisher, number one, that one that got open. And that this board should just vote to go with it and learn a lesson. I hate to say it that way. If they don't like the way that was handled, move forward. But I don't think there's any option at this point in time to reevaluate and offer a secondary bid.
Thank you, Frank. I think you may find that great minds think in the same direction.
Dave, I have one more question. In the options, when Mr. Terry's motion is submitted to the board, in the comments area, something said that the other bidders or potential bidders who didn't bid were contacted. Can the board share with us what these other bidders said as to why they didn't bid?
I think if you wait for the question, that'll
Okay.
come out. That's my intent. Pat was there.
I have only one other comment. I believe the bid said be completed by the end of February.
February 27th.
Right. As far as the MAC committee is, and I also fish a heck of a lot, Commodore Boat Club, really doesn't even need to be done in almost till early April sometime. As a fact. I mean, so I'm putting a gun to a vendor's head to have it done by the end of February with potential winter issues.
That's
I prefer to have it done by the end of February.
that's your lessons learned. In other words, yeah, that is an issue to be discussed, but it's not necessarily relevant to this position.
So I understand, but I just was making a point. I'm sure I'd like to have it done by the end of February. Clearly, that gives us a path to work, a little flexibility in case it's not. But nevertheless,
Okay. White Horse Boat Ramp contract motion. Do I have a motion?
Yes, you do. I move the Board of Directors accept and approve the Fisher Marine bid of $255,000 for the boat ramp project. Background. Pre-bid meeting was held on September 12th. 5 contractors attended. Bids were due in October 2nd. Bids were opened on October 3rd. Only 1 contractor submitted a bid. That bid was the budget was $250,000. Their discussion, which was just referred to post the last board meeting, calls were placed. Vendors who chose not to bid to assure full understanding of what was going on, and the bid that was received on time was within $5,000 of the budget. So I move the Fisher Marine bid be accepted.
I'll second.
Discussion.
It's you two guys.
That's us too. Yeah, subsequent to the bid, and the main question was a single bid. Pursuant to that question, whether or not we had gone back to the bidders who had not signed out and there are varying opinions on how well, whether that should be done. There's varying opinions on whether or not the contract should have been open before we discuss it. Those are all things we address. I don't want to say at our leisure, but we can address them later and take more time. We call the contractors. I think Pat wrote a summary of what they had to say. I guess the real relevant point, I can want to look more, but the relevant point is that there's nothing that they said that indicated that had things changed, that had they given time, and had they, or any other conditions, that there was anything in the RFP that would have prevented them bidding, would have, how do I say, changed their mind about that.
That's right.
And so whether or not the procedure was handled right from the beginning to the end, really is no corrective action they can take. I mean, they're, in fact, did not materially affect the outcome, I guess I can say. Now, again, we could take up at another time what we believe the correct procedure should be in terms of opening a lot of things, but that's a revisit. So, and I think given also the time frame that we're trying to go under, the improbability of getting another bid at this stage, even if we open it all the way up, it's pretty. So I'm basically going to vote for it. Anybody else?
Well, I just want to get straight in my mind. You two guys contacted the other vendors,
Yes.
and you try to determine why they didn't bid.
Yes.
And your summary, Dave, was that there was nothing that we could change that would motivate them to bid again. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Nothing. Not without going back and looking at the process from the very beginning and the time frame very beginning. There was no question that they all felt they did not have enough time to respond to our opinion. The ones who voted. There's no question at all about that. There's no question. But then you asked the subsequent. Suppose we had extended the RFP date out. Well, no, we really have to anyway. It sort of goes back to earlier in the process, but the February 27th. I mean, certainly, they asked themselves is the question why, And that really doesn't give us any time or enough time. There's, again, these are things that I think you need to examine a little with a mind not repeating again, or at least seeing how we can improve that. We might get to the very end of that and say, hey, this is the best. I don't.
Well, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm incorrect, but it seems to me that before I ran for the board, the protocol was that we would always be looking for at least 3 bids. Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I correct in that? So if there is only 1 bid, yet our desire is to review 3, what should we do in that case? Should we just accept the 1 bid and move on? Should we not open the bid at all? What should we? How should we handle something like that?
Well, there's several ways that you can handle it to start with. I guess it's mainly put the focus in your head that this is important that we go after these 3. Now, I'm not saying, Bob, you didn't have that focus or that you didn't think so, but nonetheless, the real criteria, though, is not after the fact. After we find 1 bid comes in. First of all, the board should be notified of the result. Secondly, we should go back, and preferably with, I think, as we did with Jerry and Pat and myself, or 2 other board members, and we should go back and query the prospective bidders, the people that asked, and find out why exactly, and whether or not it's a correctable action at the time, right then and there. I mean, somebody could come in and say, well, look, you put this, this, and this in, and I can't do that. And you say, well, tough, the other contractor can. But you have to ask yourself the question, is this, and this really required? Did it make a difference to us? I mean, you can second guess yourself. You should second guess yourself, even after the RFP has gone out, to get that kind of response. That's my opinion. And I think those, what?
It's the definition of leveling.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to do this, and I've been involved in a lot of procurements, primarily as an observer in Ocean Pines procurements. And at any rate, it's not like this one was egregiously, but it was wrong enough.
Can I comment on
Sure you can.
Okay, let's. My understanding, and Jerry was in the meeting, he gave me a brief of phone calls. Of the 5 bidders, 1 bidder thought the job was too small. Correct? Sure, they weren't going to bid on it regardless of the time. 1 bidder couldn't get the bond because they don't do work out.
That is correct. Yeah.
Correct? So there goes 2 of them. 3rd bidder was too busy until November of 15. There goes 3 bidders. The last 2 bidders joined together to put the bid in.
Yep.
So, if I'm not mistaken, it had nothing to do with time frame unless we wanted to do it next fall. There was nothing wrong with the bid process. The only exception, lessons learned, would be, and there's no board process for it, so Pat, you and I discussed it, and then Dave came in and we all agreed. Moving forward, if we had 1 bid, which is something we hadn't done before, but if we have 1 bid, we'll get it, we won't open it until the board's notified.
May I make a comment on that, though? We're talking about timing. My problem with timing is the documents were dated December 15th. When was it you brought it to us?
January of this year.
Why did we wait until September to do the package? It put everybody up against the wall. Why
But
not?
again, as I explained at the last meeting, and it's easy to go back and chronologically put everything together over and over. Fact of the matter, we got the permits first. It was a permit process. It took almost a year to get the permit. Then we put it out for bid. I don't know what
Yeah.
I have
should
a
be a
couple
big issue.
Couple
Go ahead.
comments. Look, to Frank's statement, use this as a learning process. There's 2 statements. Also, I think Dennis Hudson said lose credibility of bidders. I've been bidding this market for 40 years. When you get 1 bid out of 5, you've already lost credibility. The Tuesday I found out about it, 2 weeks after the fact, I called some of the. Let me tell you, the credibility it isn't being hurt by what we do. The statement that we can use this as a learning process, that sounds nice, but clearly we don't learn. We don't learn. We were told that if we don't take McDonald's and Sons sole source contract to do the drainage on the golf course, we'll never get it done by the spring. Push come to shove, in a corner, last minute, we gave the bid to McDonald's and Sons. They finished in November. We could have bid it out 10 more times. We're told that if we don't take one bid from Harkins on the yacht club pool, it's impossible that it'll be open Memorial Day. We're pushed into a corner. We have to make the vote. The vote is made. It was finished in August. So I'm obviously not going to support this. We're never going to get multiple bids if we don't put our foot down and support it. And if we keep approving sole source single bids, never going to get a second.
This wasn't a sole source bid.
It's not a sole source bid.
Call it whatever you want. It's one bid.
Let that pass, Paul. We know
It's the definition.
It's
not.
Is that a
Yeah,
I agree with
yeah, we all agree, but
Okay,
it doesn't
it
matter.
wasn't a sole source contract. Was McDonald and Sons? Yes.
Yes.
Was Harkins? Yes. Excuse me, I slipped up on one of the one bid
No,
contracts
I think
I've looked at in
I
3
think
years.
that is definitely an issue.
Yeah, I just want to go back and reiterate what I just heard. Because when you have 5 bidders show up, 2 of which gather together to win the, one can't get a bond. One says the job's too small, and the other one is busy for over a year. 5 quarters worth of work ahead. It wouldn't have made a doggone bit of difference if we had bid this thing in August or July or June
You
or
might
whatever.
have gotten other bidders.
I think I've got the floor. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. So, lessons learned at this point, and as I said at the last meeting, I'm not exactly a novice at running RFPs. When you have 5 companies show up at an RFP, not a single one of them wrote an appeal asking for the extension of dates of any kind, wanting the decision to be delayed. Can we do the work in April instead of February? Nothing came in. I'm not saying procedurally we don't have some things we could look at from here. But when we talk about lessons learned, bottom line is you had 5 people show up at a walkthrough. If you'd had 1 person show up at a walkthrough, that's when the flags go up. When 5 show up. So again, I just think I want to reinforce my motion here to pass this and move on. And I don't think there was anything egregious that happened here at all. And you know, throw around all kinds of single source and sole source and all that stuff. That isn't what this is by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it's now in full disclosure, after the phone calls have been made, at least 2, if not 3 of them weren't going to bid the business no matter when we're done. So, Dave, I would ask you to call the question.
I have. And it's based on it. Look, I happen to think it's a good bid. I happen to think Fisher's a good contract. What smells to high heaven is the process. It stinks. We can talk about 5 people showed up. What about the 3 I've talked to that didn't even answer the bid? Because less than 1 month to answer an 82-page RFP for a small marine contractor, and every one of these is small marine contractor. The biggest is probably McGinty.
So the RFP was too detailed?
It was outrageous. I wouldn't have bid it.
I would, yeah, okay. I would.
82 pages. Did you read it?
My job's real.
Look,
RFPs.
The one thing, and let me just finish this. I'm going to call the
this is
question.
ridiculous.
But let me just comment, Marty, that the one thing I'm absolutely certain is that if there's a fault in the process, then we're not going to fix it here at this table right now. I mean, it's going to take more than that to do it. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Do we have an abstention?
Present.
That's
And the reason is, and let me just say this. I am under the impression that we have to have multiple bids in order to protect the interest of the bidding process.
Everywhere.
I understand what Bob said. It seems very logical. What I also heard from Bob, and you inferred to it, that if there is a single bid in the future, that bid will not be opened, and the board will be informed, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
Yeah, I would add a few things to the list, but that's again
But
another time, another discussion.
Fine.
Not this one. Okay, I'm going to move on to the.
You abstain, Jack?
Present.
President, what up?
As abstain.
You got 5 in favor.
5-1-1.
That would be 4.
No, 4-1-1.
Sharon's.
Oh,
Six.
Sharon's
There's
there.
six, yeah.
The next subject on the agenda was, and all I can say is that we are deferring that until we receive a recommendation and a package, which I believe.
Thanks, Frank.
But given that it hasn't, it'll be
Thank you.
deferred to some unspecified time.
It was sent out Friday.
Actually,
546.
I saw an analysis, but yeah, right, I did. I looked at it again today. I might have did it, but you know, I think it doesn't matter. We can't address it here, and we have to address it at some point in the future. And I'm not going to address it until I've seen it and plenty of time to look at it. I get comments back. We're sure that they've seen it, and that could be, I think. I also have a look at the time, who's available. It's not something I'd be willing to do telephonically, unless the rest of it is. So I'm saying it's probably on the agenda for the October, 27th meeting, regular meeting. November, sure. What is it? No, it's before.
Daylight savings time, we move forward a month.
It's a couple weeks.
Daylight saving.
Okay, assuming we have a good bid, except they're not going to start this year. That's a given. It's not happening this summer.
No, I don't know.
Should we now face that back, load these toilets and park? We had historic high tides this weekend, guys. All we needed was a northeast flow and went ahead and sailed.
Well, I think it's unfortunate, really. But on the other hand, it is what it is. I mean, they'll either start the work, get it done, or they won't.
They got to dump that water out to do the work. But I say,
First of all, we have to select. I see what you're saying, but I don't know. I would wait until I don't think we have any other choice. Wait until we get.
It's like not having avalanche insurance in snow season.
No. I think it's an unfortunate circumstance, but I can't.
I'm in favor of filling the
any
pools
two
up.
board members can call a special meeting if they.
Why? We're all sitting around a table right now, Dave.
I don't even have with 12%.
I don't either. I'm not talking about voting on the pools.
I looked at it
I'm
as
talking
a
about filling them up.
as a recommendation. I don't believe, but
I'm not being clear.
Got a crack.
The RFP is,
Right.
are the
So it's had cracking for
the
3
proposal.
years.
The RFP?
No, not the RFP.
Well, that's the proposal. I need to know what you're asking.
Proposal is something that a contractor writes in response to an RFP.
Mr. Stevens, I have them here today. For you.
Okay, but we can't read them today. obviously.
I understand that. It
Okay.
wasn't, you added it to the agenda. I wasn't expecting to have it at this meeting, so I saw the people.
Yeah, well, I'll apologize for that, and I'll say it's my fault because back 2 weeks ago, when you said, and it's still written in here, that I will have I had an issue and I'll have the issue resolved by the following Monday. I just kind of thought that meant we'd have the proposal in plenty of time a week after that, but we didn't. And so I'm not bringing it up. I'm saying that's the way it is, and now we have we don't have a choice. We can't bring it to this meeting. We'll concede that, right?
Well, I agree with
We
you.
can't make a motion. So we have to look at the documents, look at the proposal, and tell me what. a week from now, then get a board together. A week from that, we'll be at the regular board meeting. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not disagreeing.
Okay, good. There's no issue. I mean, unless, of course, Marty is correct, there is going to be an issue after that. But again, let's find out what happens.
So what you're saying, Marty, is an uninitiated new board. You're saying if we don't put water in the pool now,
They'll
they're
float.
going to
They
they're
can.
going to have the
float.
same problem we had before
They may
with
float.
the old yacht club.
Yes. Float.
With
They
water.
make sailboats out of
Water,
concrete.
yeah.
Now, just for clarification, if I
Yeah.
may,
Go ahead.
part of not putting water in the Mumpers pool in particular,
Right.
and the information I sent everyone Friday, clearly explains why. We're recommendation, and this is why you didn't get the information sooner. And Dave's right. The goal was to have it by Monday or Tuesday. But when I reviewed the bids as they came in with the teams, there were some holes in it. And I wasn't going to give the board a recommendation without getting that information answered. One of which, in the Mumford's pool in particular, we have that end that's on the water side where it had actually had dipped at some point. And only one of the 5 bidders gave any type of recommendation for a potential solution to that. The rest felt it had settled to the furthest point that it was going to settle, but no one could be sure. So we backed up a half step when I saw that last week and looked at what do we need to do to be sure. So we ordered core sampling, which takes about a week to do, and that's in the report that I gave you, that actually is doing core sampling around that pool. So we can see if there's any holes or what's under the pool to see if there's anything that would lead to future dipping on that far end. We thought that was appropriate before we made a final recommendation to the board. Now I do have what came in the bid packet, and our analysis was provided via email, and I'm happy to print any of them out for you before you leave. So that's why I wasn't going to make a recommendation until I had that other
Well,
analysis.
question then, if you have the core samples and they show that there does need to be some alteration, there's only one bidder that shows any interest in doing that, doesn't that automatically almost eliminate the other bidder?
After the discussion on the one bid contract, no, sir, I have no comment. No,
It does have a fact.
It does have a fact. That's why I didn't want to make the recommendation per se. So that's what we slowed down for. But after seeing it on the agenda, we finished putting it together with an explanation of what the delay was, and that's what was sent out Friday. It's not because we're slowing it down. We just found when the bids came in, there were some concerns we had following those bids, and we wanted to explore that before making the final recommendation.
Let me say the biggest concern right now, the reason that this was put on the agenda, because I think it was made clear to all of us that this was a very time-sensitive and contract. And my intent was, and my hope was, to accelerate this by getting the information, even if we got it a little bit late, at least have the weekend to go through it, and then come in on Monday and pass the thing. But we're here, don't have the information. It will take us time to do it. And, given the difficulties in getting a board together, I don't see any reasonable alternative to doing it next week. Now, what that has done is it has increased the risk significantly. I think. I don't know. And then maybe nothing at all will happen. I mean, it is your proposal, recommendation, is it not, that we proceed with the contract and do it and leave the pool empty up until the time.
Which we're talking Mumfords or both, or what's? I'm sorry, I want to make sure I answer.
I don't know. I think Mumfords are both. I mean, both.
Well, I gave the information on both pools. The Mumfords was my only concern, and that's what we're trying to get.
So are we ready to, so is your recommendation that we proceed, even knowing that it may be delayed, is your recommendation that we proceed with the contract, put this on the next, or at least put it up for a vote at the next regular board? Is that your recommendation?
To put out at the next regular board meeting or sooner, yes, sir. That is my right.
Okay, so we're set to proceed after we've had time to go through these bids and set up next week. And if somebody else wants to set up and say, hey, any two people can do that. Or you can ask me. But make sure everybody's
I think
available.
everybody like to read the material first.
I'm sure.
May I make a comment on the history for that? The general manager says not prepared to make a recommendation at that time. We did make a final recommendation almost a year ago. 22214 fixed that. So that's how this thing is just not quite moving forward. They found some other things that were wrong with it.
And that's what slowed it down.
Yeah.
We had the contractor in starting to work. He said, wait a minute, I can't warranty this because I found more damage in the pool. So that's what slowed it down. We decided to wait till after the
Did we
season.
find out exactly what that damage was?
Yeah, the crack in the back of that pool, he was concerned about what that.
Crack.
We saw that. We saw that.
No.
Okay, can I move along? Please. Yeah, board budget guidance. I received a budget guidance statement from the Budget and Finance Committee, recommendations, suggestions. They got it into us certainly, and we should all have that because it was all in our package. Although I didn't remember that, I drove myself crazy trying to. What the heck is that?
It's in this.
It's in the package.
It's in the package in the last meeting.
Last meeting's package.
I didn't bring it with me.
Okay, I reviewed it myself, and then as I had time, thought about some other issues or items that would be relevant to the budget. I wasn't involved in last year, but it was kind of the same as the year before that. And I think I have a draft copy of what was submitted last year. So those are kind of the starting points, I think, for everybody on the board. Budget and finances suggestions
I never
and what we did last year. Yeah. And
Is it under your
also,
package?
and also what I'm going to hand out.
Is it under your package?
These are-
It was in the last board packet, yes, sir.
These are, I've had some ideas about this for a while. Yeah. And I'll just distribute these. And these are no more than just talking points and things to think about. And what I'm going to request is that the board, starting from this meeting, and before the next meeting, that they basically go through and come up with their suggestions, their guidance. And I'd like to have that next week, actually.
Try to have some pictures. All right.
And basically, focus on what are the real budget guidance items that we want. Now, I will make a comment on the draft that I received from the Budget and Finance Committee, just pointing out that some of their suggestions are more relevant to financial decisions the board might or might not make later in the year, as opposed to guidance to Bob that, here's what you need to do for your budget fund. So for an example, my favorite horrible example is that, an investment policy. We can say, Bob, write a good investment policy or have an investment policy. It's not going to do him any good. Because it's a policy decision. We have to look at it. And moreover, if we did and came up with a perfect solution, it still wouldn't affect the budget. The budget,
We actually do have an investment policy.
Yes, we do have an
We do have
investment
one.
policy.
Already
And we
exists.
have proposed revision to it, which was never put forward. So that's the kind of thing, and there's other examples, but there's also some good suggestions. I think we certainly should start with that. And these things aren't for discussion, but they're just a starting point for everybody else. Anybody else have any comments on budget guidance? Yes, Bill.
Just along with the process for Pat especially, Budget and Finance Committee will sit down, if they do the same as we've done the last couple of years, sit down with all the departments and come up with a much more extensive. A lot of this is generic, but they'll give us a very specific list of things once they get the budget, go through the budget. They do a very, very, it's several day process of all that, and they'll give a very specific, budget.
Well, the guidance itself, as past years, has been pretty generic. It's supposed to go out and build budget and stuff like that. I'm only being a little facetious, but I mean, I think you.
Well, that's what they're supposed to be.
Well, that's generally what they're supposed to be. But if you really do want to see some specific issues addressed in the general budget, this is the only time other than when you've already, have it in your hands, that you can suggest in advance what you're expecting to see. So, it's not much time. Wish I had started about it. So, okay.
Before you jump on that,
Sure.
On this capital improvement plan, which is part of it,
Yes.
we're looking at 2,000. It was part of it. It was.
No.
It wasn't.
No. That's just recycled paper. No.
Never mind.
Yeah, Jack likes to do that. He put it
I was going to say,
You just gave me this. Don't make.
I didn't give
at
it.
least in January.
I will never give you anything again. Jeez.
That's why I've never seen it before. I don't use the same recycling paper.
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
but you-
Who let those two sit next to each other? No. Okay.
Okay, you just gonna leave that.
Well, if there is no other business, I don't believe
I
there is.
have
Okay.
a question. Let me read from this document. Because the committee members believe strongly in the need for a well-developed business plan, not simply marketing plans, we also suggest budget review and approval for departments. Not providing this information should be postponed until required documentation is presented. So they're really trying to put in place a business plan rather than a marketing plan. How would that be enforced? I mean, it's Bob's. Bob puts the plan together with the department heads. But how would that be enforced? Through Bob or what? I mean, are we proactive in that or?
Everybody should have
Thank you very much.
probably have their own idea. My idea is kind of embedded in something like that. I mean, we want more information to justify the budget items. That's just me. That's my idea. And now, they say, well, we should have a marketing plan. Well, I think we had one a long time ago. It's one that I never saw. But they said it's there, so I believe it. But the point is, and that may or may not be the right example. I think they're probably better ones, but there should be some justification, and I'll suggest that there will be justification for a particular budget item. So, for an example, that may be somewhere down, I don't say please, but at a lower level. But if you're going to, pick on golf, why not? If you're going to say, here are the revenues that we're going, is our goal or what we're projecting for this budget. Is there a market plan to support it? Well, at Casper, you kind of already know that they're using their market and so forth. But they should, it would be perfectly reasonable to look at, what, if any, negative or positive impact that's had in the last 3 years. Or certainly you can't prove by the bottom line that it's had one. Although, maybe it has had one, and you can't tell from the bottom line because of the other factors that were involved in it.
Could have saved us money, right?
So, and in the yacht club, the general manager should be able to tell us if catering and basically outside events coming in is a big part of our. How is that being done? How is that being managed? I mean, is there some reasonable expectation that the numbers are going to improve next year or go up next year, given that we're doing this? Now, like I say, they're not my favorite examples, but
Right.
they're
But to me, a business plan, a marketing plan is part of a business plan.
Yeah, it's an
Part of. Is that right, Bob? I mean,
An exhibit. Yeah,
that's
true.
the environment in which I.
Yeah, you're exactly. I mean, that's my view of it. In fact, what the important part of the business plan to me is the specific numbers that you're trying to achieve. Personnel costs. What margins are you trying to achieve? What's your price points? And that's an important issue. What are you trying to, in order to attract people who will come to an Ocean Ponds Yacht Club? What should your price points be? What should you be trying to charge? I've had comments last time I was there, which was on the other night, that geez, these prices are very reasonable.
And to me, because I really don't have a great deal of knowledge in this particular area, and I've discussed this with other individuals. On the technology side, a business plan to me, to understand that we are headed in the right direction as far as our IT and technology enhancements are concerned, a business plan is critical here. A comprehensive business plan showing where we've been, what we've done, who we've consulted with. I don't want to develop it, but I need to understand that we've touched all the bases as far as IT is concerned, and we're doing cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, well, many years ago, our yacht club business plan put together by the yacht club manager several times was basically a bunch of menus. This menu, that menu. No, it's not gross. It's not. But on the other, you should answer questions.
Well, if I may say,
Sure,
in last year's process, you went through it last year, Pat, you're going through it this year. As an example, one of the things we got from the team was a detailed week-by-week projected revenues based on time of year, hours of being open. I mean, it was a very detailed printout as to how they had analyzed what the revenues were going to be, both upstairs and downstairs, and what the revenues were going to be. So it was well beyond menus, but, again, it
I did say
this is like arguing against puppies and kittens again. Of course you want business cases. Of course you do. You have to. You can't make decisions without business cases. And I think as a guidance, that's probably, I don't see anything wrong with what we're doing, as long as we understand we have to come to some agreement as to what level we're talking about. You can spend thousands of dollars writing business cases, or is what we got in the budget process last year with all that detail down to the week-by-week revenue projections, the level we're talking about. And we can't solve that here. All I'm suggesting is that perhaps you look at what we got last year and say it was that or not, in your view. Dave, your view, Pat, your view. We got it. The four of us got it last year. Take a look at what was presented. I'm just suggesting you look at it.
Oh, sure.
To say, is this what you're talking about? And if it is, okay. If it's not, what else is there? There was a rather extensive amount of information put out down to, when you're down to the week-by-week revenue projections of the upstairs versus and the downstairs and all that, I don't know how you get much deeper as opposed to how many tables you
Well,
But again, my only suggestion is take a look at what we got last year.
Absolutely.
See if you're okay with that. That's my suggestion.
Take analysis. And
Right.
there's no other way around it. So I agree.
That would be my suggestion. You guys take a look at what we got last year and see if that would be sufficient to what you want.
All right. So I have any further comments on that? We all know that we all are going to at least 3 or 4 days in advance before the next meeting, because I believe that's when you really have to settle on the budget guidance. If that takes a meeting attached to the meeting, so good. Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, Tom Stiles has
Yes,
media
I'm
questions.
sorry.
Media questions?
Actually,
Wait, okay, you caught me. You caught me. That's good.
go ahead and go to your media question, but we're actually not adjourning into
All right,
closed.
Going into closed session.
Can I ask a media question?
Yeah, she's first because she's better. You are.
Ooh.
And she has socks on.
Yeah.
Okay, for the, I'm sorry that I don't have as much history as you guys do with OPA, but
Can you tell us your name?
G. Mark, and I write for the Courier.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the main purpose of the board budget guide? Is it to define what level of detail you're going to have the budget process entail? Or I don't quite understand.
Well, it can be a number of things, but it can provide instruction on the board's intent. Oh, for example, salaries and compensation in general. What have you provided
For this upcoming year?
for the upcoming?
It's the general manager's budget. The goal, I think, of this is just to say, by the way, we don't need a company jet. It's to narrow it down.
Really?
You had it in there again
I
this year.
did.
Yeah, you know it.
We had one.
Listen, I'd have voted for it. You know that.
So it says parameters.
Yes, that's all it is.
And we
That's what a
will,
budget does.
we will go through the budget really closely. I know and it's every line.
Every line of it.
Every line.
Every line.
It takes a long time. So, you know, in my mind, the budget guidance is if we could short circuit that by telling you know, Bob in advance that we're really going to be looking for this, Bob. We're going to be looking for this, going to save us all. So, did I answer the question?
Thanks.
Okay.
Socks.
Right?
Oh yeah, no socks.
On the pool contract. As if I understood the conversation here, Bob actually submitted a recommendation to you all late Friday afternoon with a contractor recommended.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
That he's answering because I haven't seen it. But that's
I'm sorry.
okay.
But I've seen it.
You sent it out via email, presumably, and you all just, not everybody has seen it yet.
some of us have jobs. I left my office at 5 on Friday, and I've been at work all day.
Some of us go away.
Some of us just sleep though.
They do the same thing in Washington.
Same
What do they call that?
thing.
But
Document
Dave,
dumping?
you actually looked at material that Bob supplied.
Yeah, I have not looked at it in a no, and I don't know that I have everything that I'll.
What was this
the
contract?
proposals, for an example?
But pools,
Cementing the pools.
Oh, cementing the pool.
right.
I thought I heard golf pro.
My layman's way of saying. Okay. Joe? I already said it at the beginning, Jeff, so he doesn't have to say it again.
No, you can't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bob, you mentioned that one of the contractors it said too busy. They couldn't do any work through the middle of March, 15th.
He said November or next
Said
next
November.
fall.
Yeah, Bob wasn't there. I was there.
Yeah.
So in other words, he was too busy through most of next year.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, basically, that contractor, as I recall the conversation, really talked about that a lot of his work is on private residences.
Right.
And so he's, somewhat smaller. And the issue is he needs a heads up as early as possible to be able to plan his work. In other words, if you take a big chunk of work, and he can't accept any smaller jobs. They're not that small on decks and
But he's just not available. When he found out at the time, he was not available.
At the time he found out, he was not.
He mentioned borings or something. What's going on underneath of that water side into that pool? Is all that information in the package done already? Those borings and compression, or does that have to be done in the future or something?
No, we ordered those, so they should be done in the next 7 days.
Well, how can the board make a decision on a
pull.
Well, that's part of the write-up. I received the information, and if it had on the agenda, they needed. I was following what the agenda was, so I made the best recommendation I could, given the information we had. But I commented, we're doing this. That may enlighten us on some other issues.
The answer
I'm
is
just trying to understand the time frame. That's all, because that information is not available just to me unless I missed something. Correct me if I'm wrong. It'd be difficult to make a decision until you have that information.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
so. I mean, setting a time when we were going to make that decision.
What I heard
I'm not-
was that
I'm
the
not
other
gonna try
bidders
and
had
do that anymore.
had not recognized that as a potential problem, which is a problem for me. Because I dealt with a lot of bids where we asked for something and they'd say, well, we don't think that's a problem. We say, fine, we don't want you. So if we come up with a situation with Mumford's Pool, is all of a sudden is a problem, and the other vendors have not answered that problem, it's a problem. Yeah, I would say that one vendor, then it's back to a single bid again of somebody who answered our situation.
No. We've
Am
got
I
to be
wrong?
careful. As I say, we want to be careful how we state this, okay? The bids came in. It was staffed. We identified a couple of concerns. We regrouped to get those additional issues resolved. And that's where we are right now. One of them is the core sample. Multiple vendors felt it was a full settlement that had occurred, and that may end up being what it was. Again, we're exploring it to make sure we're not putting ourselves patching or repairing the pool and then having it settle more. That was the only concern.
But what I'm saying is that if the other vendors have not recognized that as a problem and their cost estimates, they haven't made allowances for that, I would think that the one vendor who has said that that's a problem has already made allowances. I don't know.
That is correct.
Yeah, again, we don't have enough information. We're almost, I mean, it's from a board perspective.
I'm in the dark.
We're just speculating. I mean, we are in the dark.
The issue is they ended up on the agenda of this meeting.
So I
And
scrambled to have
you
something
put it the other
private.
way.
He put it
I'm
together.
going to put words in your mouth. You ended up on the agenda. You gave us what you could.
Right.
And we correctly said, wait a minute, let's get the rest of the information.
And based on previous comments of Bob, I fully believe that it would be available by now to spare. So, okay, let's move. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
It's a motion to go into
Closed session. Motion to go into closed session. Okay.
You should give the reason, technically.
And the reason is